the swipe that changed everything. The night was quiet, and the human sat alone in his small room, the light of his screen glowing on his face. He was not a soldier, not a leader, not a hero. He was just an ordinary man, tired after a long day of work. Out of boredom, he opened an app that had recently appeared on his phone. No one knew where it came from. Some said it was a prank. Some said it was a test. The name of the app was simple, Galactic Match. He laughed when he saw it. Aliens looking for love? What a joke, he whispered to himself. But boredom made him curious. He started to swipe. Strange faces appeared, faces that were not human. Some looked like shining statues, others like shadowy beasts, and some like living fire. He shook his head each time, thinking it was all fake. Then the screen froze. His breath caught when he saw her. It was a girl, or perhaps more than a girl. She had silver hair that floated as if moved by an invisible wind. Her skin glowed faintly, like starlight, smooth and pale with a hint of blue. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, golden and endless, as if they held galaxies inside. She wore a crown of living crystal that pulsed with light. The words under her picture said only one thing: Princess. He smiled nervously. This one looks like she belongs in a movie, he muttered. His finger hovered above the screen. He thought for a moment, then chuckled. Why not? Just one more swipe. What harm can it do? He swiped right. The phone buzzed violently in his hand. The screen turned white, blinding his eyes. He dropped the phone, but the glow filled the room. Strange symbols spun across the walls. His chair shook. The ground trembled. He stumbled backward, his heart pounding. Before he could run, the light formed into a circle in front of him. It was like a mirror made of fire and water at the same time. It rippled, then grew wider until it was taller than him. The circle pulled at his chest like a magnet. No, this isn't real, he shouted, grabbing the side of the table. But the force grew stronger. Papers flew across the room. His phone was sucked into the circle. Then his own body lifted from the ground. He screamed as the world around him vanished. For a heartbeat, there was only darkness. Cold. Silence. Then he landed hard on polished stone. His lungs filled with strange air that tasted like metal and flowers at the same time. He coughed, his heart racing. Slowly he looked around. He was in a hall larger than any place he had ever seen. The ceiling arched high above, made of glass that showed a sky full of stars, far brighter than Earth's. Tall banners of black and silver hung from the walls. Strange statues of winged beings lined the hall. Guards in shining armor stepped forward. Their helmets were shaped like beasts with glowing eyes. Each guard carried a spear that buzzed with energy. They pointed the weapons at him. The human raised his hands quickly. Wait, I don't even know how I got here. The guards didn't answer. Their language was strange, a chorus of clicks and echoes. Still, their weapons hummed louder. His chest tightened with fear. Then a voice broke the silence. Soft. Musical. Commanding. Stop. The guards froze instantly. From the far end of the hall, a figure walked forward. Her steps were slow, graceful, like she floated instead of walking. The light of the hall bent toward her. It was the same face from the app. The princess up close, she was even more unreal. Her crown of crystal blazed with living light. Her gown shimmered like liquid silver, flowing with every step. Her golden eyes locked onto him, studying him from head to toe. The human could not breathe. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The princess stopped a few steps away. She tilted her head slightly as if curious. Then, to his shock, she spoke in perfect English. You are the one who matched, she said softly. He blinked. What? I didn't mean. Her gaze hardened, sharp as a blade. Do not lie. You swiped. You chose, and now you are here. His heart pounded. Sweat rolled down his neck. He wanted to protest, but something in her voice silenced him. Behind her, the guards murmured to one another. The sound echoed like thunder through the chamber. Some laughed, some hissed, some shook their heads in disgust. He caught one word repeated again and again, human. The princess raised her hand, silencing them. Her golden eyes softened for a moment as she looked at him. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Father must see this. The guards immediately surrounded him. The tips of their spears glowed brighter, warning him not to move. They pushed him forward, guiding him deeper into the hall. His steps were heavy, his legs shaking, but he obeyed. The last thing he saw before the great doors opened was the princess's eyes, still locked on him. Not cruel, not angry, something else. Something he could not name, and in his chest, fear mixed with something strange, something dangerous. Hope. The alien court, the massive doors creaked open, and the human was pushed into another chamber, greater than anything he had ever imagined. The throne hall stretched so wide it seemed endless, the roof glowing with stars that shifted like living constellations. Black stone pillars reached upward, each carved with faces of kings and queens who had ruled for thousands of years. The air smelled of fire, metal, and ancient incense. The guards shoved him forward. His shoes echoed against the shining floor. He felt small, like a child standing inside a god's temple. On both sides of the hall, alien nobles sat in long rows, their robes glittering like liquid jewels. Their skin was silver, violet, and gold, their eyes glowing with fire and frost. Each one leaned forward, watching him with disgust, whispering behind clawed hands. "Human," one spat. "Fragile creature," hissed another. "A mistake," murmured a third. Their voices stung his ears. He wanted to shout that he was not weak, that he had not asked to be here, but the words caught in his throat. At the far end, upon a dais of black stone, stood a throne carved from a single meteor. On it sat a figure that made the human's blood run cold, the king. He was not just tall, he was massive, his body armored with plates that looked grown from his own flesh, dark as obsidian. A crown of spikes floated above his head, spinning slowly, humming with strange power. His eyes were molten gold, brighter than the princess's, burning with the weight of ages. Around him stood generals with scarred faces and weapons that pulsed with energy. The human froze as those burning eyes locked onto him. He felt as though the weight of a mountain had been dropped upon his chest. The princess walked ahead of him, graceful and fearless. She bowed lightly, but her voice was firm. "Father, this is the one." The hall grew silent. The king leaned forward, resting his massive clawed hand upon the arm of his throne. His voice rumbled through the walls like thunder. "This," the king said, "is the human?" The guard shoved the human to his knees. He gritted his teeth and tried to stand, but the pressure of so many eyes kept him down. "Yes," the princess said. Her golden eyes shone with a strange fire. He matched. Gasps rippled through the nobles. Some laughed bitterly. Others shouted in anger. One elder rose to his feet and shouted, "This is mockery. Our bloodline cannot be tied to a creature of dirt and weakness." The king raised a single hand, and silence fell instantly. His eyes never left the human. Slowly, the king rose from his throne. His shadow stretched across the hall, swallowing the light. He stepped down the dais, each footstep shaking the ground. The human could hardly breathe as the giant figure stood over him. The king's voice was low now, but it carried to every corner of the hall. "Tell me, human, do you know what you have done?" The human swallowed hard. His voice shook. I swiped right. I didn't mean to. I thought it was just a game." The king's molten eyes narrowed. "A game?" The hall rumbled with anger. The nobles whispered furiously. The guards pressed their spears closer, but the king lifted his hand again, silencing them all. Then, to everyone's shock, he laughed. A deep rolling laugh that echoed like thunder across the hall. The human froze in confusion. The king leaned closer, his burning eyes inches away. "No, human. This is no game. This is destiny." The human's heart pounded. He didn't understand. Destiny? Him? He was just ordinary. He had no power, no training, no knowledge of this world. But the king's next words froze the entire hall. "For thousands of years we searched for the missing piece, the power our empire lost long ago. Weak as you are, your kind carries what we need," the nobles gasped. The generals muttered darkly. The princess's eyes widened, a glimmer of triumph flashing in her gaze. The human felt his blood turn to ice. The king was not looking at him like a man. He was looking at him like a weapon. The king straightened, his voice shaking the air. "So, you are the upgrade." The words thundered through the hall. Some nobles rose to their feet in rage. Others bowed their heads in silent fear. The human stared up at the towering king, his heart hammering so loud he could hear nothing else. He whispered to himself, almost without meaning to. "Upgrade? Me?" The princess turned to him, her golden eyes blazing with something strange, hope, pride, and maybe even affection. Her lips moved silently, forming a single word only he could see. "Believe." And with that the doors slammed shut behind them, sealing him inside the alien court where his fate would be decided. The trial of worthiness. The throne hall trembled with whispers. Nobles argued, soldiers hissed, and the alien elders demanded answers. How could a fragile human, pulled from a distant world, be called an upgrade? The king's booming voice silenced them all. If he is to stand by my daughter, he must prove he is not only flesh and weakness. He must survive the trials. The human's heart sank. Trials? He whispered. The princess's golden eyes softened for a brief moment, but she said nothing. She only turned her head slightly, as though warning him to stay strong. The nobles shouted with approval. Yes, test him! Break him! Show his bones are brittle. The guards seized him and dragged him away from the throne hall. The doors thundered shut behind him, cutting off the sight of the princess. The first trial, breath of the void. They threw him into a chamber with no windows, only a strange machine in the center. A voice echoed through the air, cold and sharp. Your kind is weak. Can a human breathe the breath of the void? The machine hissed, releasing gas into the room. At first, the human coughed. The air was thin, sharp, and wrong. His chest burned. His vision blurred. The guards watched from behind glass, smirking. He fell to his knees. His body screamed for oxygen. His hands clawed at his throat. He remembered stories of deep-sea divers holding their breath, of humans pushing their limits. He forced himself to stay calm. Slow breaths. Control. Resist panic. Seconds stretched into minutes. His mind swam, but he refused to collapse. He thought of the princess's eyes. That one word, believe. When the machine finally stopped, he collapsed to the floor, but alive. The chamber doors opened, and even the guards looked surprised. One muttered under his breath, impossible. A human endured. The second trial. Strength of the arena, they dragged him into a circular pit surrounded by thousands of shouting aliens. The air shook with their cries, crush him! Tear him apart! From the other side of the arena stepped an alien warrior, twice his size, covered in dark armor, carrying a staff tipped with burning plasma. The warrior sneered, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The human had no weapon. His heart raced, the gong rang. The alien warrior charged. He barely rolled aside as the plasma staff scorched the ground where he had stood. He had no strength to match the alien's blows. Each strike shook the earth, sending sparks of fire. The crowd laughed, certain the human would die. But the human was fast. He ducked under swings, used the alien's own weight against him, and grabbed loose sand to blind his eyes. He moved with desperation, not skill, but desperation gave him creativity. Finally, as the warrior raised his staff for a killing blow, the human dived forward, smashing his shoulder into the alien's knee. The giant stumbled. In a single breath, the human grabbed the plasma staff and drove it into the ground beside the alien's throat. The arena went silent. The alien warrior lay still, shocked. The human stood panting, shaking, but victorious. From the high stands, the princess rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with pride. The third trial. Knowledge of the ancients. They brought him into a chamber lined with floating crystals. Each crystal glowed with alien symbols, spinning slowly in the air. An elder with 6 eyes and a voice like stone addressed him. Your kind is clever in small ways. Let us see if you can solve what even our young ones know. Questions appeared in the crystals, riddles of stars, puzzles of light, sequences of alien history. At first the human could not understand, but he remembered something, patterns. Humanity survived by finding patterns, weather, animals, even stars. He studied the crystals, connecting the dots, seeing shapes where others saw chaos. Piece by piece he solved them. Each crystal turned from red to blue. The elder frowned. Impossible. A human sees what we cannot, the guards shifted uneasily. The nobles whispered louder than before. The breaking point. When the third trial ended, the human fell to his knees. His body ached. His lungs still burned. His arms trembled. He had no more strength left, but the hall shook with voices. Some shouted for his death, demanding more trials until he failed. Others whispered with fear, beginning to see him as something dangerous. The princess stepped forward. Her voice rang out like a blade through silence. He has survived. He has endured what even many of our kind could not. The nobles roared in anger. He is still human. He is weak. He is nothing. The king rose again. His golden eyes blazed like firestorms. Enough. The hall froze. The king looked at the human, broken and trembling, yet still standing. Fragile body, Weak bones, but will, unbreakable. His voice shook the pillars. Perhaps strength does not come from skin or blood, but from spirit. The king's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter than ever. He leaned forward, his words heavy as iron. This human may be the upgrade our empire has waited for. The chamber erupted in chaos. The human's chest heaved, but a fire had begun to burn inside him. For the first time, he no longer felt like prey. He felt like destiny was pulling him forward, toward something far greater than himself. The princess's choice. The court was chaos. Nobles shouted. Generals argued. Some demanded the human be executed before he grew more dangerous. Others whispered in fear, saying they had seen enough to know this creature was different. The human stood in the middle of it all, bruised and trembling, but still upright. He wanted to scream, to run, to escape this nightmare, but something inside him refused to bend. He remembered how the princess's eyes had shone during the trials, the way she whispered, "Believe." That single word kept him from collapsing. The king raised his hand, and silence rolled over the hall like thunder. His golden eyes scanned the crowd. "You doubt," he rumbled. But he endured. He survived what many of our own would not. "What more proof do you demand?" A noble elder with silver skin stepped forward, his robes heavy with gems. His voice was sharp like a blade. "Proof is not enough. He is still human. Our bloodline cannot be tainted with weakness. The princess must not be tied to him." The crowd murmured in agreement. Dozens of glowing eyes turned toward the princess, waiting for her to speak. The human's stomach twisted. This was it. Whatever she said next would decide if he lived or died. The princess stepped forward. Her crystal crown gleamed brighter than ever. Her voice rang across the throne hall, clear and steady. "If he is not chosen," she said, "then I will reject all others." The hall exploded in outrage. Nobles leapt to their feet. Soldiers shouted in disbelief. Some cried out that it was blasphemy, others that it was betrayal. The human stared at her in shock. She was defying them all, for him. One general, his armor black with crimson scars, shouted, "You dare risk our empire for a fragile outsider? You shame your throne." The princess's golden eyes burned like fire. She raised her chin high. "I dare because I have seen truth. You call him weak, yet he endured where even we would have broken. You call him fragile, yet he faced death without surrender. If that is weakness, then perhaps our empire has forgotten what strength truly is." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The king's eyes narrowed. He looked at his daughter long and hard. His expression was unreadable. Finally, he spoke. His voice was like a mountain cracking open. "You would choose him? Over all who came before? Over princes of 100 worlds?" "Yes," she said firmly. "If he is not worthy, then none are. My choice is final." The human's chest pounded. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. She was staking her life, her throne, her future, on him. The nobles roared again, demanding her be stripped of her title, demanding the human be executed before dawn. The hall shook with fury. The king raised both arms, and the very walls trembled into silence. His eyes glowed so bright the human could hardly look at him. "Enough," the king thundered. His gaze moved from the princess to the human. Then he descended the steps of his throne slowly, each stride echoing like thunder. He stopped before the human towering above him. The human swallowed, unable to speak. The king's voice dropped low, almost a whisper, yet every soul in the hall heard it. "You bring chaos to my court. You break the order of centuries. But perhaps chaos is what we need." The human's breath caught. The king stepped back, raising his voice to the crowd. "So be it, the princess is chosen. The human shall stand at her side." The hall erupted again, this time in a storm of rage and disbelief. Some nobles tore their robes. Generals struck the floor with weapons in protest. But others fell silent, their eyes filled with fear, as though they knew destiny had shifted. The princess walked toward the human, her steps steady, her gaze unshaken. She stood beside him, close enough for her hand to brush his. For the first time she smiled, a small, fierce smile filled with pride. Whispers filled the chamber. The human, the upgrade, the chosen. The king raised his hand one final time. His words cut like a blade through the storm. "Let the galaxy hear it. From this day forward, humanity shall rise with us, and any who oppose." His molten eyes flared with fire. Oppose me. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The human felt the princess's hand slip into his. He held it, his heart racing. He didn't understand why she trusted him. He didn't understand what he had done to deserve it. But one truth burned inside him now, brighter than his fear. This was no accident. He had been pulled here for a reason, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's upgrade. The hall was still shaking from the king's words. Some nobles screamed in rage, others whispered in fear, but none dared to defy him openly. The human stood beside the princess, his body weak, his clothes torn, but his spirit burning like fire. The king returned to his throne, his golden eyes never leaving the human. "Do you know why you were called here, human?" he asked. The human swallowed hard. His voice was small. "Because I swiped right?" The hall rippled with laughter and scorn, but the king did not smile. "No," the king said slowly, his voice echoing like thunder. "Because your kind carries what ours has lost." The human's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" The king rose again, and the room seemed to darken with his power. "Long ago our bloodline was pure, too pure. We cut away weakness, pain, fear, even mercy. We made ourselves gods, and in doing so we lost what made us whole." His golden eyes flared brighter. "We lost resilience. We lost spirit. We lost the fire that refuses to die." The nobles lowered their heads. Many could not meet his gaze. The king pointed a clawed finger at the human. "You endured where others would break. You fought without strength but with will. You solved riddles not with knowledge but with instinct. These are not flaws. These are the upgrade." The human's heart pounded. For the first time he understood. He wasn't here by mistake. He was here because humanity's greatest weakness was, in truth, its greatest strength. The princess stepped forward, her golden eyes glowing. "Father, the galaxy has forgotten what strength really means. Let him stand with me. Let humanity remind us all." The king's voice dropped, low and heavy. "So be it. From this day the human bloodline shall be bound to ours." The hall shook with fury. One noble cried out, "This is madness. The council will never allow it." The king's gaze turned sharp as fire. "The council does not rule me." Suddenly a group of armored generals broke from the crowd. They drew their weapons, pointing them at the throne. "Then we will," one roared. The hall exploded into chaos. Guards clashed with generals, blades of plasma striking against shields of light. Sparks rained from the ceiling as the throne hall became a battlefield. The human ducked as a spear slashed past him. He stumbled, his heart racing, but the princess pulled him close. "Stay with me," she shouted. A soldier lunged at them, but the human grabbed a broken piece of stone and smashed it into the soldier's faceplate. The alien dropped, stunned. The crowd gasped, some in shock, some in respect. The king rose to his full height, his voice shattering the chaos. "Enough!" He raised his hand, and a wave of golden energy blasted through the hall, throwing the rebels to the ground. Silence followed. The rebels trembled on their knees, their weapons broken. The king's molten eyes burned. "Do you see now? Even in the middle of chaos, the human endures." The princess's hand tightened around the humans. Her voice was fierce. "Let them all see. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is the spark we lost." Slowly, the nobles lowered their heads, some in shame, some in fear. None dared to speak. The king looked at his daughter, then at the human. His voice rang with finality. "From this day forward, humanity is no longer an outsider. They are our allies, our blood, our future. And if the galaxy calls them fragile, then let the galaxy tremble when fragility becomes fire." The hall shook with his words. The human stood taller, though his body still ached. For the first time, he was not afraid. He looked around at the sea of glowing alien eyes, and instead of fear, he saw respect, fear, wonder. The princess leaned close and whispered, so only he could hear, "You're not just a choice. You are destiny." He turned to her, breathless, his heart racing, and in that moment he understood. He had swiped right not just on a princess, but on the fate of the galaxy. The drums of war echoed through the distant halls, calling the Empire to prepare. The galaxy would soon test this new bond. But one truth was already carved into history. The human was no longer the downgrade. He was the upgrade.